A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us on this edition of Spectrum Extra, live on Radio 1 FM 90. Today being a Friday, we review the major events of the week. We'll be looking at some key developments on the political scene. Well, we know the Electoral Commission this week continued to receive aspirants for the presidency. And the statistics indicate 190 people have so far picked forms to express interest. Among those we saw this week was retired General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni from the NRM, retired Major General Greg Mugisha Muntu from ANT, the Honorable Muhammadin Sereko, and Honorable Norbert Mao from the Ecological Party of Uganda and the Democratic Party, respectively. Those are some of the key people we saw there. The rest are young people who are also interested in being the presidents. We also witnessed confirmation of further presidential portraits. The NRM unveiled the portrait for its candidate, and the theme there is protecting the gains as we make a qualitative leap into a high middle income status. The last elections, the NRM used the theme securing your future. Now, the main opposition party, NUP, this time around they are saying a new Uganda now. In the last election, they said a new Uganda. FDC's Nathan Nandala Mafavi is using the theme fixing the economy, money in your pockets. Now, the retired Major General Gregory Mugisha Muntu is also the joint candidate for the PFF party. They have not yet published the portrait, so we do not know what the theme will be. But when he ran under ANT in the last elections, his theme was the change you can trust. So we'll be looking at these messages. What do they actually tell us what these political parties stand for? Because they now have to come with the manifestos which must reflect some of these themes they have put across. Inside the NRM, they have entered that critical stage of electing members of the Central Executive Committee. Now, there are serious battles to watch, especially between Anita Among and Rebecca Kadaga. That is for the position of Second National Vice Chairperson, female. We have heard about issues of money and personal attacks, even being talked about by the party chairman himself. Now, there was a meeting of this party in State House not so long ago. They decided that they will retain Mr. Yoweri Kaguta Museveni as chairman of the party. His brother, Shadrack Nzei, who wanted to be vice chairperson, withdrew from the race. Moses Chigongo emerged as unopposed for the position of First National Vice Chairperson. The remaining candidates will be presented to the National Executive Committee tomorrow. A final report will then be presented to the National Delegates Conference, which will sit between the 27th and the 28th of this month. So we'll be looking at those dynamics in the NRM party and what it means as they go to the next elections. We had the Kasita strike. What does it mean for the local common person? This week, they closed their shops, complaining about overtaxation, favoritism to foreigners who are now involved in local trade. They are not also happy about the decision by URA to end what they call the groupage system. That's where small traders come together, import a container full of commodities. URA accused the traders of using that system to under-declare goods in connivance with some of its staff. Some of the staff of URA have since been suspended. We'll be looking at this issue in deep. What does it mean for the local Uganda who is involved in trade and the interest we have as a country to attract more foreigners as investors here? Because the traders are saying some of these people who came here as investors are now involved in petty trade. We should be a preserve of the local Ugandan. There's also been a debate about the Nachivubo Channel saga. Now, KCCA has finally ordered businessman Hamis Chigundu to hold activities on the Nachivubo Channel. It has emerged that without any authorization from KCCA and NEMA, he began fencing off the channel to construct structures above it as per the proposal he made to the president who cleared it. The Lord Mayor Arias Lukwago has been opposed to this project, saying it did not follow the laid-down procedures. Now, the channel is among the main waterways helping the city to contain floods. Chigundu had proposed to modernize it and cover it up. He would then construct structures on top of it using his money and then recoup probably from renting them out. The period which he would do that was not specified. It was not also clear if it was a lease arrangement or full ownership. Now, all those questions have forced KCCA to actually ask him to stop his activities and try to, return all the things that had been, put around the channel to where they were, including the iron sheets, and also desilting some of the mud that had found itself in the channel because of his activities. So I have a panel of 4 to run through those key issues. Let me introduce the Honorable Stephen Kitale Birawa. He's Executive Board Member at the National Planning Authority. He's in charge of infrastructure and physical planning. We also have in studio Dr. Yusuf Serunkuma, a political economist, researcher, and columnist with the Observer newspaper. We also have Dr. Sarah Birete, Executive Director, Center for Constitutional Governance, Pandit on Human Rights and Governance Issues, and the Honorable Emmanuel Lumaladombo. He's the Director of Information at the NRM Party Secretariat. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure having you on this panel.
Good evening. Good evening, and I heard Dr. Sarah Birete is there virtually.
Well, we don't know. Maybe there could be a...
Do you want to adopt that name?
Maybe what do you want to take?
What do
You want to take her? They're always taking everything. Now they want to take humans.
Good evening, fellow panelists and viewers. You can hear that I'm really marginalized in this group, but I will try to assert my rights and that of the women.
Good evening, listeners and viewers. Most importantly, we welcome back our children for holidays of this term, and more so for candidates who are preparing to go back and do exams. So parents, let's do our role as we prepare the children to go back to the 10 months. Parents, we are only parents for 2 months when they are for holidays, assuming they don't have those illegal holiday programs, and then they go back to school. So let's, for the little time we have, let's not allow the TV, the TikTok, and the maids to parent. It's our time to put some time.
Thank you so much. Dr. Yusuf?
Good evening, listeners, and thank you so much for hosting me.
It's a pleasure having you here. Now, let's begin this discussion, and I want to come to you, Dr. Sarah Birete. And we're beginning with this discussion looking at the key developments on the political landscape. This week, I've highlighted some of the key issues that actually took place. Let me give you an opportunity to comment on them. From your perspective as somebody who follows closely what happens on the political scene.
Well, I will start with a number of people picking presidential forms. 190.
So far.
Yeah, and I know there will be many more. Our estimation is 200 or even more. It signifies 2 issues in my view. One is a protest by young people about bad governance in the country. Most of the youth that are picking those forms are picking them in protest of bad governance. The other group that are picking forms are also demonstrating that the presidency has been greatly downgraded by the current occupant, and everybody thinks they can do better. The third aspect that you read in these numbers is the hopelessness of Ugandans, the mistrust in the leadership, the lack of respect in the highest office. Everybody thinks they can occupy it because of its non-functionality. And the youth, and I saw somebody who had just finished high school, I think a young lady. The youth have no trust at all in the leadership, and they protest what is going on in this country. And I hope that the leaders will pick that message instead of hoodwinking Ugandans that it's a demonstration of democracy. It is a protest of young people. When you look at the other events happening, especially the SEC elections and the NRM attempts on internal democracy. On a slight positive note, I want to credit Honorable Domba and his team for being consistent on some levels of internal democracy, although the top hierarchy is not open to competition. They are leadership. But the other seats are open to competition, although with high levels of vulgarization of principles of democracy. The method that SEC chose in 2015, I think, for lining up, violates the principles of credible, free, and fair elections, because the first principle is sovereignty of the vote. So when you expose your members to the vagaries of democracy, including bribery and violence through open voting, in this election you have properly reaped from that. You came up with the 400 petitions in the tribunal, and I saw some of the members contesting judgments that were full of mistakes, including mistakes on the parties to the petition, which is really unacceptable legally. But you need to check that process. Protect your members. They have a right to secrecy of the ballot. Also protect the members from money, abuse of elections, and violence, where people think they must control power by hook or crook, which including shootings in internal party elections. You have murders that we are counting, down. A family competition that is supposed to be friendly. If you are counting death, then what should people expect in the national competition, where you are now facing members outside your own family as a party? The SEC race, 290 candidates, 91, 2 have stepped down today. And so that leaves 289 for about 27 positions. Really, what is magical that these people want to offer other than seeking privilege and advantage? So I wish to stop there as a preamble, and we'll come in further with a deeper analysis. Thank you.
All right. Let's now go to Dr. Yusuf Serunkuma. Let's also hear your view about some of these key issues that have trended on the political scene this week.
Thank you so much for having me. First of all, I want to join Dr. Birete in her assessment of the numbers that have picked presidential nomination forms. I think I agree 100% that it's a protest, but also a caricature of the entire system. That the best commentary you can see about our political spectrum and the elections generally is that it has lost all meaning. It's the best you can ever get. It's like young people have said, let's show what this election means. My favorite part were people who showed up in stilts. Remember those? Or Obuyungo. Like clowns. It's clowning the entire system. It's not just those who showed up in stilts, but also the group that showed up, the group which speaks big English, but incomprehensible. You don't know where they're going. And it's typical when you listen to a man like Emmanuel Dombo speak. He speaks good English, but incomprehensible. You can't understand what he's doing. You can't understand what he's saying. There could be a bit of coherence, but it doesn't make sense. You see? So these young people just said you can even take out the coherence. You can maybe mute the sound, and Dombo will still sound. There are those lines in Shakespeare's Macbeth where life is compared to some loud, or they don't sound really nice, so I use them in the context that mentioned Dombo's name, perhaps if we feel offended. But it's like the sound made by an idiot, Shakespeare says, full of energy and fury, but signifying nothing. That's where we are. These young people speak big English. It means nothing. We could laugh at them. It looks like jokes. They showed up in stills. It looks like jokes. But that's the best critique you can get of our political spectrum. Can you imagine if I could smuggle this in? Mr. Museveni said to us recently that he didn't know that people were paying to see him. That he had no idea. People were paying in millions to have access to him. You see, so it's... And you would think, Mr. Museveni, maybe he means it, but most of the time I think he's feigning ignorance. But it's what they call it real politic. That, it's these games we play. You move these dices here, you play this one, you skim here. It's the spectrum. We aren't serious as a community when it comes to elections and politics. So these young people, in their numbers, in fact, Mr. Anderson Lukwago, my biggest prayer is that they all get nominated. That all of them appear on that long ballot paper. I don't know how long it's going to be. That Mr. Museveni's name appears somewhere in the middle of the alphabet.
Oh, the last.
Depends on how he's going to play this one, because these are so many names. I pray they all get nominated so that this imagery of caricaturing our electoral process is sustained. Because that's where we are. They are saying, move to be equal, because at this point, too much is being said, but signifying nothing. And I think I'll leave it there for the presidential nominations.
Okay.
You could call me naive, Mr. Lukwago, but I don't understand what SEC does in our politics as a country. I've never understood what the Central Executive Committee of the NRM actually does. Because, power is decided in State House. And
that's why it's sad.
And not by everybody. Not by everybody. We know power in this country lies in a family, in a couple of hands. So I have never understood what sex signifies in the larger political games of this country. I have never understood. Maybe it means something to who has access to the dining table. But in our politics, I've never understood. I don't even know why it shows up as a topic to be discussed at this table. I don't know what it means. Because look, if all these 200 young people started political parties, they will also have sex. They'll have central executive committees.
Okay.
See, look at this man's mind. They'll have central executive committees. And how much time are we going to have for a show discussing these different central executive committees? You know what I mean? So I could be naive in this. Maybe it matters so much people inside the national resistance movement. But what are they coming to offer, as Dr. Virete asked? What is the magic they bring to the table in the larger, sphere of our politics?
All right. Well, build on. I hope Honorable Dombo will respond to you. Let's now go to Honorable Stephen Mukitale Birahwa, who comes from the National Planning Authority, a key entity that is looking at the development of this country. The presidency is also crucial, even in terms of planning, Honorable Mukitale. The number of people interested in taking up that office. Let's hear from you.
I'm trying to look at one of the works Late in Sivandi did with some of the Makere lecturers of political science, Sabit Makara and others, the quest for democratization, decentralization, and he talks of so many other things, including governance, not just election, but it brings in issues of governance, ownership, accountability, transparency and accountability. And I'm saying that ideally we need to develop institutions. This contest, basically when you are discussing individuals, it means we are still in the individual merit syndrome. Ideally, if we had political parties, as they are supposed to be, we would be having institutions with ideological clarity, and therefore would be discussing manifestos of these political parties, the ideology as it relates to the current needs of a country. The youth, for example, wouldn't just be coming everybody to, they would now be saying in which political party are my interests being articulated, so that, and even the political parties themselves would be seeing that they have developed cadres, they have they are now placing them according to the areas they think they will do best, so that you don't see this amount of circus. I almost called it caucus. Now, when you have a problem,
they could be the same.
When you have, for example, we know that all there would be big parties in the last 2 years have kind of created 1 or 2 branches. So you can have as many slogans as one is saying a new Uganda, another one is saying fixing economy, another one is saying that. It does not make sense, because at the end of the day, an election is supposed like this, and that's why I want to hold the youth responsible. President Museveni and his generation crafted the Uganda they want. We are playing to the tunes of what they crafted. It is a responsibility of these young Gen Zs to also craft the Uganda they want. Whereas they are the ones individually going as if they are going to stand. They are the ones who are asking for money from candidates, right, from sub-county councillors. You know, these primary elections you've heard of all parties, they have put, you know, instead of demanding the future they want, they are going for small things. They are asking for money. They are asking for, and it's very disturbing. So for me, how I wish that as an advocate of national dialogue, as a person who believes in strong institutions, because I don't see strong institutions here. So we are at the mercy of individuals. And because you individualize it, you cannot run away from commercialization of politics. And that's why the debate, you don't run away from this election. There is a lot of money going to be used in this election, because there is not so much about ideology. It's not about issue debate on the manifesto. People at the end of the day, even the community down, will not even ask, what does this party stand for? Whoever comes with groceries, whoever comes with something, will be more visible, irrespective of what you stand for. And I think that's not good for the country, because we are at a level where the country should be aspiring to reach some levels, and these issues are not coming up.
All right.
I've not heard anybody bring in the issue of East African integration. What if tomorrow we became a federation?
All right.
Does any political party speak to that? Nothing.
Honorable Mkitale, do
So
hold it
that's
there. We need
where
to go.
I find a very big problem, and I think we can do better.
Let's go for a break. When we return from that break, I'll give you an opportunity to build on that discussion, because you've not had your say on the Central Executive Committee, and then we'll also hear from Honorable Dombo, and then we'll forge a way forward during that discussion. Stay tuned to Radio 1 FM 90. Keep your comments coming via the WhatsApp line 0703 090 090. Well, thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum Xtra, live on Radio 1 FM 90, reviewing the major events of the week. I have a panel of 4: Honorable Emmanuel Lumala Dombo, Dr. Sarah Birete, Honorable Stephen Mukitale Rawa, and Dr. Yusuf Serunkuma. We're looking at a number of issues, but first we're dealing with the issues on the political front. Now, Honorable Mkitale, you had your say on the issues of people who want to run for presidency, the number of people who have picked, expression of interest. But let's hear on the Central Executive Committee, meeting, and the role that it actually plays in the NRM. Dr. Yusuf Serunkuma seems to suggest that it's not an issue for us to actually be discussing here. And this even reminds me, there's a message that came in from Dr. James Tweheyo directly to you, Mr. Yusuf Serunkuma. He says, I find it ironic for panelists to spend a whole 3 to 5 minutes discussing SEC of a party and concludes with a testimony that he doesn't know what SEC does. Surely let him first educate himself on the functions of SEC before he discusses what he admits he doesn't know.
To Uganda.
So as I transit to my NRM SEC, the point I was making is that at the end of the day, the campaign messages, the manifestos, should speak to the national interest, should speak to some common good, should speak to the national destiny, so that we see some confluence, we see some convergence from all these competing parties. But when you see them devoid of that, then you get worried of the hollowness of this kind of message. To the SEC contest, it is real. I pass through Kololo every morning. The whole place is
yellow.
It reminds me our days of Nambole, when we used to go to Nambole for the big contestations. It is really, the numbers are big. I had earlier talked about the issue of cadre development, cadre placement, because in this cadre development and placement, there used to be what they call seniority. We know the party has some ideologues. I sometimes get embarrassed with some ideologues competing for some of these things. If it cannot be agreed for some ideologues to be given unopposed, I would rather they are reserved for something. For me, that's what I would
democratic
want. So
is that democratic?
You know, there is a difference. You should not go for anarchy as opposed to an institution. There is seniority, there is hierarchy, there is chain of command.
I think what you should be dealing with is anarchy, but not muzzling people, not to express
not necessarily
themselves.
muzzling. You see, when we talk about hierarchy, chain of command, and seniority, it also comes with merit. There are people who have served the institution and they are not scandalous, and you can say these ones merit to be in these senior positions. But right now, we are at a stage where nobody can come from anywhere. But because the NRM historicals, those who have been there, you have had these people complaining, why are we now bringing more opposition to head the party than the historicals? It is a disincentive to some historicals. So that discipline, it also comes something to do with party discipline.
All
you
right.
cannot, the moment you sideline hierarchy, seniority, and chain of command, you've lost it. You don't have discipline.
The party
anymore.
has decided Yoweri Kaguta Museveni retains his position as chairman, and then they have also decided Haji Moses Chigongo is the first vice
That's the seniority
chairperson,
I'm talking about.
unopposed. And maybe they have said the others are not so senior; they can compete for those positions.
Yeah, you see, while I was using the word ideologues, there are some people who really are the the vanguards in terms of ideological clarity, in terms of the ones who should be mentoring these young people and say, you can do better. You can identify and say, this man is a good mobilizer.
Give us examples.
But you don't qualify to be an MP. I used to argue, why should I have somebody without S6 being chased in every parliament after winning, wasting a lot of money in primaries, and then that person should be eliminated. The research department of a party, because what I'm talking about also comes with the party research department.
All right.
Anderson, can I say something small?
Just very quickly.
He has a good point. It's a very good point. But this is the confusion we are in as a country, that we have movements that we problematically call political parties. Movements don't subject themselves to elections. They have icons, he's calling ideologues, who carry their ideas forward. So these movements, you see, NRM can't survive without Museveni, NUP can't survive without Bobby Wine, FDC, and so on. These are movements, but as a country, we pretend to call them political parties, and we're stuck in this confusion. Should we just choose who should carry our ideas, or should we go to an electoral process? In this confusion, we are stuck in this loop, and I think this is the point that Honorable Xtra here is trying to raise. But he can't get out, because the confusion is from our birth, the birthing of these so-called political parties. They are not political parties. They are movements that problematically subject themselves to processes which are alien to their founding.
All right.
So I am ending by advocating for institutions. Institutions called political parties and what they should be. That would bring us the merit and competition, that would bring the cadre placement, that would respect seniority. But I was ending by saying it's also important to identify where one fits most. The research department should already have written on everybody, not just vetting that very day out of some panic, but the desk should already be saying, no, you are a good mobilizer. You cannot achieve things in parliament.
All right.
You can do better at a district. You can do better. We can send you elsewhere.
All right.
There's a lot you can do.
The Spectrum Extra on Radio 1 FM 90, reviewing major events of the week. and we are still looking at the major happenings on the political scene. We have heard from the Honorable Stephen Mkitale Birawa, Dr. Sarah Birete, now, Dr. Yusuf Serum Kumalaut. Let's hear from the man who represents Yellow, who is here in the studio to tell us what actually are his thoughts on these
I
issues.
thought you were
Honorable
going to
Dombo.
say, let us hear from the yellow man.
If you
Other
prefer
than
being identified
just
so,
representing yellow.
Yellow man.
Well,
What is that sound?
you know, tomorrow is Saturday, and we shall be going to Nambole for the Chan quarterfinals. And you can see how Ugandans are united when they're in that field, the level of patriotism. I call upon them and pray that one time the same patriotism that is manifested in Nambole can at one time be manifested in the political arena of Uganda, where people will compete without necessarily disparaging or hating one another, so that we can build a beautiful and good country. You know, this issue called the many presidential aspirants who have picked nomination forms. We have been telling people that in many situations the national resistance movement leads and other parties follow. When it came to picking nomination forms for various positions in the national resistance movement, a strategic decision was deliberately taken after a deep consultation. And for us, said, in order to restrict on the people who may want to emerge, in order to demonstrate your seriousness, you must deposit the money in the bank in order to qualify to come and pick the nomination papers. And you saw what happened in NRM. It cut off the people. Whether you like it or not, the laws and the rules that we develop are discriminatory in nature. When you say you want senior 6, you are discriminating against those who are not in senior 6. When you say 20 million, you are discriminating against those who can afford. But in order to have an organized society, we should have some form of regulations that should prohibit or that should enable the serious people to be coming. Right now, in the this place, I don't know where the electoral commission is now, because they told
Industrial area.
they said they are shifting the, because I'm no longer a candidate, I even don't know. So in the industrial area, every Tom, Dick, and Nyai can pick up papers and go anywhere and they demonstrate that they are 18, they qualify because the constitution was amended.
By you and
When you look at how many will return those papers,
He doesn't say that.
you may...
He said we amended the constitution as an area.
No, Parliament amended because the power to amend is vested in the
You are
Constitution
protected,
itself.
Honorable Dom.
With majority NRM.
Please continue with the submission.
So, this is something that the national resistance movement saw. And when Dr. Tanga first proposed it, many people lashed against him, wondering why. Others said we were discriminating against young people who did not afford that money.
Wait.
But now see, when the opposite has happened in the Independent Electoral Commission, where everybody, even somebody who is in Senior 6, as long as he's 18 and is a registered voter, can simply go and pick the papers, but whether they will be able to return them, that's another question. And secondly, you can get some people collecting money amongst themselves and they return the nomination papers. And then they will create the problem which doctor was talking about to say, for him he brought it from the negative side, which will disadvantage President Museveni.
You have two doctors on
When
the show, so you need to be
Dr. Serunkuma,
Honorable Dom.
Dr. Serunkuma thinks that he wishes all these people could return the nomination papers and President Museveni's name gets subdued.
We need fundraise for them.
Gets subdued in the middle there.
The alphabet.
With the alphabet where nobody can see. That is for his personal and self-interest.
where cheating is difficult.
Some information.
We are
some
cheating, we are
information
stealing.
is
Can the
beneath.
ballot have 4 pages?
All right, Dr.
So-
Sabinete has some information.
No,
for you
yes,
if
I'll
you're willing
take
to
it.
Thank you, Honorable Dombo.
If he's bringing it, he's Dr. Birete.
Before Tanga Odoi's commission, 2 young people paid 20 million to access the NRM forms. And they were denied the forms. The first reason, excuse was, come back on Friday. And then when they came back, they were told deadline is Friday at 5
And they were given the forms.
on that day of the deadline. So are you demonstrating a good
So
example?
how do you protect your ideologues? Which honorable?
Then
Senator
tell us,
Kuma
you know,
just-
to-
I mean,
tell
tell us
you
it's
know,
not open.
Tell us not to. you don't
Let
have
me
to
tell you. By the way, even when we believe in democracy as something that is very valuable and is good for this country, there is no country that has devolved out of democracy.
That's a good point.
That's what I want to tell you.
That's a good
So,
point. I agree with you.
in that determining leaders, it is not the issue of democracy because you have made it open. Anybody should come, any person can come up and contest for any position, but people should be guided. When you look at China, how many countries has it overtaken? Democratic country has it overtaken?
It doesn't
When-
pretend to be a
When it
democracy.
was a very poor country, not even democratic, but it has its own guided democracy,
Information.
which has enabled
Anderson.
which has enabled China to become the second biggest economy, a very prosperous country. They are innovative, they are higher income status, and it's one of the developed countries in the world.
So your argument is before somebody goes to the Electoral Commission to pick papers, they should first pay the 20 million.
Absolutely, that is something which you prevent. If they had done that, perhaps the number picking would be about 10. And we would not be debating anything here. That wouldn't be a debate at all. Perhaps we would have brought a debate to say, why do you put the nomination fees before somebody picks the papers? That would have been the debate at that time. But for us in the NRM, that is no longer an issue to be debated because we overcame it, because we foresaw what would happen, and we... Dr. Senukuma wanted to give information. I'll take it.
I mean, the example of China that you gave, it doesn't pretend to be a democracy. It's the communist republic. One of the things that we dispensed with early enough was communism. So you can't pretend to be a big democracy in love with the United States because we by the way, do you know we are buying American aliens to come to Uganda, and then you pretend to give the example of the communist
That is
republic.
something that I think the Minister of Foreign Affairs should come here and try to explain. I haven't understood.
No, the point was about China not being pretending to be a democracy.
No, China has guided democracy at one level. They have some form of elections. It's not absolute like ours.
But not
guided.
everyone.
But
Not
they don't-
everyone
they don't
takes part in
pretend.
those elections.
Absolutely.
There has to be a certain threshold.
And that's why we even asked by law we can do that.
All right, Honorable Dombo, let's hear about the Central Executive Committee. We need to move on very fast because time is not on our side.
First of all, I want to invite Dr. Serunkuma to either join as a member of NRM. As a doctor, he's a scholar. He can pick the literature online about the National Resistance Movement, and you read about the Central Executive Committee. Our constitution is online, and the things that we do are online. So you can really, the next time you visit the Spectrum, you could come here a little bit more informed about what we do, other than coming to confess ignorance when the information is available on your phone. The second one
Information.
is that
Let him conclude.
I'm sure Dombo doesn't read satire.
I'll give you an opportunity.
It was satirical. You said I'm ignorant.
Honorable, proceed.
I definitely know.
I meant to say it's a useless institution. To
No,
speak to speak plainly.
It's fine because you don't know what it does and you don't belong to it.
The first sentence was satire.
That's
That
that's
I've
what
never
will happen. But
understood.
for us in the Central Executive Committee, today we were doing the accreditation for the National Executive Council, which will be sitting tomorrow in the State House in Tebe, and will be sitting to receive the report from the Central Executive Committee. The Central Executive Committee considered the candidates, and I was privileged to be present when the discussions started and when the discussions almost ended, save for the time I had to come to Kampala on one of the media houses to interact with the public. NRM is democratic, and one of our core principles is democracy. But in some of the situations, we have guided democracy. That's why we vet candidates and specifically provided that those candidates who aspire to become members of the Central Executive Committee, they will be vetted. Vetting is a process, and it has considerations in mind. And one of the things that my brother Honorable Mukitale was talking about is the historical contribution, the ideological depth of an individual, the criminal background of the individual, and the ability to
you have criminals in your party.
make additional contribution to the party. For instance, when the young people who wanted to contest against Haji Chigongo, Dr. Odredo, another medical doctor, and another agriculturalist, when they got up themselves on their own volition, they said, Your Excellency, even as much as we believe we can make a contribution, but seeing our father here seated, Honorable Haji Chigongo, and his contribution to this historical movement, we believe it is not yet time for us to come and contend with him. And they did exactly say the words I'm repeating here. And President Museveni said, well, wow, I'm overwhelmed by how brilliant these young people are.
Why do I get a feeling that those young people you're talking about economically arrived on the table? I get that feeling.
You speak
You
clearly.
know,
What do you mean by that?
He understands what I'm saying.
The
On-
listeners don't.
Economically.
This gentleman is a Muganda, but we can borrow wisdom from the old people. If you ask your Dr. Birete here, what the Banyankule Bachiga say, Aruksango Mukama, Nehokorachi.
How does that
So,
apply?
when people, even when they come to the Central Executive Committee and they have gotten the Mukama, President Museveni,
So they just wanted an opportunity to meet the
not
president.
just Arokusanga.
You can go with some 10 bulls.
Yes, because if people were paying, other people were paying money
To see the
to see the
president.
president.
So you
And
com-
now somebody has got an opportunity to meet the president.
So you
Why would you,
compete.
why would you
Let's
So-
allow Honorable Dombo
why
to
would
tell
you
us.
condemn him?
So,
I will tell you.
are you therefore agreeing that these young people were economically settled so that probably they got out
No,
of
no,
the
no,
rest?
no, not economically settled. They got an opportunity.
What do you mean, Orukusanga
to
Okama?
raise, to, they
Anderson,
got-
you're saying they
Let
were,
me-
they
let me
were
tell you.
bribed.
Mm.
You're saying they were bribed.
No,
Let me
let
tell
me
you.
respond.
Is that your saying?
And I want to give you,
economically
I want
bribed.
the
I mean, they were
listeners
bribed.
to get the perspective so that they understand the depth and the level of interaction. One of the participants was Dr. Odredo, who was sponsored by State House. And he came and told the president to become a doctor. And he came and told
To
the
go to
president,
school.
he said, we are a team of many young doctors whom you have sponsored, and we are looking for an opportunity to meet you so that we express our
Who
gratitude.
have been sponsored by the public
Public
sector.
funds,
Yes,
absolutely.
public funds. Don't say the president.
No,
Public funds.
but he's the president because he's the minister for finance. He's the chief executive of this country. Even you, if you have some problem and you go to him, the president should
Why?
be with you.
Why?
Very
Ask
quickly,
those who have been
if you
going
can
there.
conclude
So,
on Dom.
when the Central Executive Committee considered this, because of that, other people opted out. When it came to our brother from Western Uganda, Pananzeri, he gave a very astounding presentation to the Central Executive Committee as to why he chose to become a chairperson of the Western Uganda. He said they have been a chairperson for Kiruhura for 10 years, and now I should escalate to the next position. And the president said, fine, that is good. But I told you that I will not support you because of these reasons. And he gave him the reasons in the presence of all the other candidates, including all the members of the Central Executive Committee. And he says politics is not because you want. Politics, there is the general good for the country, the general good for the organization, and the good for the individual. And all those interests must be married in order for us to build a stable country.
So somehow, Mr. Nzei was ordered out of the race.
Nobody ordered him out of the race, but there was a discussion, and he understood the discussion, and he conceded to the issues that were raised in the discussion. So the Central Executive Committee was doing its work as it is supposed to do.
And how has the Central Executive, how has the party treated the race between Right Honorable Anita Amongo and Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga?
Well, because NRM is a democracy, this matter was debated. There were so many considerations and many people bringing all sorts of ideas. There are those who thought that the two could be asked to discuss amongst themselves so that one lives for the other. Because the Central Executive Committee, I think, did want to make a commitment of saying that they told so and so to live for the other, which is beyond the powers perhaps of the committee, where we have a democracy. And other people say, but we have a democracy. And Right Honorable Kadaga the other time competed. So it is not the first time that Right Honorable Kadaga is going to compete and vote on the same position. He competed with Honorable Namuganza and he beat her hands down. So if it has happened before, the question was why do you would want to prevent it from happening? And this is the same Central Executive Committee. So the committee agreed and upheld, said they are both candidates. Let us their names be submitted to the National Executive Council, which is going to sit tomorrow.
They were also vetted.
And that's part of the vetting.
Anderson, can I say something small?
All right.
There's a good point that I really pick from Honorable Dombo. And I think we'll struggle with this as a country moving forward. Whether we commit ourselves to the pretensions of democracy, or we can pull all our resources together, especially our human resources, and move forward. What Honorable Dombo described is a spectrum of an internal struggle which is inbuilt within the political party. That you have people that you wonderfully feel have contributed both to the political party and to the country, so you need to put them in particular positions. But at the same time, you carry the pretensions that we are a democracy. So you end up with these situations that are difficult to get out. And I think that's where the NRM is. And Anderson, if I ever get the chance to become president of this country, the first thing I'll do is to return the movement system. The thing that Museveni started, but then vulgarized and threw away. Because the movement meant you bring your best brains together and build a country.
Mr. Museveni did not throw away the movement
He
system.
vulgarized it.
He saved it in the Constitution.
He vulgarized
It
it.
is in the Constitution.
No.
But also remember,
No.
there was a drive by or political parties to actually push for multi-party democracy. So the movement had to go away.
You're still stuck in the pretension. The idea of a movement was pull every single brain that has something. You see, Sarah here is a very credentialed activist, a very credentialed lawyer and community organizer. Sarah needs to be deciding for this country. She has to be at the table where core decisions are taken. But because she's marked or positioned, she can't be there.
Dr. Sarah will tell you she's serving the country from where she is.
No, I'm telling you, no. She waits to critique the mess these people are creating through the pretension.
No, but
She collects data. She has to be there. And this is a big point I want to build. Honorable, you should listen quite carefully. Building this country forward, we have a very small human resource. And I think you're struggling with that confusion in your party. Because right now, you also see your party as small in terms of knowledgeable and committed people. And now, young people who maybe matter so little or know so little are trying to dislodge them. And if you pretend to be a democracy, you should let them dislodge them. But then you realize these people are very vital to us. This was my problem with the NUP when they were insulting NUP for choosing people to stand in different places. I said we should learn not to pretend. We have small human resources in different places and we need everybody. So if you have like a central executive committee, which is made of like a politburo, you choose. That's what China did. Everybody in China with a brain has to sit at that place where decisions are taken.
All right. Spectrum Xtra on Radio 1 FM 90. Let's go for a break now. When we return, we'll shift our gears and look at some of the other issues that are on our agenda as we continue reflecting on the key issues that featured this week. Stay tuned, Radio 1 FM 90. We'll continue after this break. Well, thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum Xtra live on Radio 1 FM 90, reviewing the major events of the week. A panel of four with the Honorable Emmanuel Lumala Dombo, who is the Director of Information at the NRM Party Secretariat, Dr. Sarah Birete, Chief Executive Officer at the Center for Constitutional Governance, Dr. Yusuf Serunkuma, political economist, researcher, and columnist with the Observer, and the Honorable Stephen Kitale Virawa, Executive Board Member at National Planning Authority in charge of infrastructure and physical planning. My name is Kenneth Anderson Lukwago, your host. Dr. Yusuf Serunkuma, you seem to be a little bit worried. Let me begin with you on this particular discussion. The issue of the strike by Casita and the undertones, the issues they bring to the fore, including issues of taxation, but also issues of favoritism for foreigners who come here as investors and then turn up doing what they call small-scale business, similar to what Ugandans do. What does this debate actually bring to the fore about the state of the Ugandan economy?
Anderson, all those issues raised are very big issues. They are very, very big. The issue of taxation, the issue of protecting local businesses, all those need entire sessions to go to the bottom of these issues. Anderson, I remember coming to this show a couple of months ago, and I asked you whether we know the people who sit down and design the taxes that are imposed on business people. That we needed to know who they are so that we can talk to them, have conversations with them. Maybe the business people need to talk to them, understand their thinking, and ask them if they've ever done a business themselves, or if they could survive a week in downtown Kampala doing business. We need to get to the bottom of this. All of these are big. The taxes in this country are crippling. They are designed not to make businesses thrive. Anderson, a businessman said to me as I was researching this topic, a businessman said to me that, in one single year, you can import a product and you find 3 tax regimes on the same product, but when the market price of that product hasn't changed. And in some cases, you find a product, the tax is way bigger than the market price. And then you ask the authority, do you know how much this product sells on the market? And if you take such a tax from it, you know how much I'm going to get? You see, so if taxes are designed during the reading of the national budget, and they say on this product and that product, this is the tax, what explains 3 tax regimes in a single financial year? What explains these, fluctuations in taxes? This is why businesses are really struggling. If you go downtown and speak to these business people, they'll give you a long list of grievances with the tax authority. A long list of grievances with the tax authority. And those can't be resolved unless we return to the basics. That we need to allow business to thrive. Anderson, you are taxed in this country from just picking a loan. But, people take loans from banks, and if you ask for 10 million, by the time it reaches your bank account as a loan, you have paid so many charges, including taxes, on a loan of 10 million. So you get 9 or something thereabouts. But the credit is 10. But the amount of money which drops on your account is way less because of the so many charges that are accrued. Among them are taxes. So businesses have long lists of grievances, and I think as a country we need to get to the bottom. Now the problem also comes because business people normally through Casita sit down, discuss with so and so, and then somehow they reopen their shops. They discuss with the Prime Minister this time, the next time the President, and we have put the weight of the business environment onto their shoulders. We have put the weight of this country's business environment onto their shoulders. As a country, we need to sit down and discuss how do we enable small businesses to thrive. Now, the questions you ask me about foreigners taking over our economy, that is an existential question. That is the question that has kept Mr. Museveni in power, that he handed over our entire economy to foreigners. You see, and the Chinese, who are not there in the original setup, have now taken advantage of the system because the system is open. I've said to you, and I think I didn't say this to you, Anderson, I wrote this in one of my columns in The Observer, that when you meet a foreign business person, they will also sound shocked by the amount of mess they get away with in this country. That our almost subservient attitude to foreigners is mind-blowing. They get free things, free tax regimes, businesses, tax what are they called? Where you get a tax break for the next 10 years. Tax holiday, and then you collapse that business, and then you reopen it with another name, and you carry on forever without taxes. You see, they are astounded by the amount they get away with in this country because they are foreign business people. But the bottom line, Anderson, if I ever get the chance to become president of this country, perhaps you need to take a communist posture. Countries everywhere protect their businesses with life and difficulty. The United States now is imposing taxes. Every country imposes strict regulations against foreigners coming to the country, even as you invite them, but to make sure local businesses thrive.
All right.
Yeah.
Anderson, we are poor because this entire economy was handed over to foreign business people, and now the Chinese are just taking advantage of the entire thing.
All right. You've mentioned it twice. If you get a chance to be president of this country, that shows you have some ambition, but we'll wait for you at that point. But let's go to Dr. Sarah Birete. Your take on this issue of
the traders. Yeah, before allow me just one comment on Honorable Dombo's really honest disclosure of Sheikh of SEC, NRM SEC. I liked the aspect that some of the aspirants just wanted an opportunity to meet the president. So instead of bribing, because the president also told us people bribe to meet him, so the young people chose to compete for SEC in order to meet the president. That really shows
Creativity.
No.
Level of
It is not the creativity. Corrupts. Some are looking for handshakes. Some are looking for jobs. So SEC race was just an opportunity, a photo opportunity moment or job-seeking opportunity, and that shows how unserious SEC is. Like what Dr. Seyinkuma had said at the beginning. What do they do? If competitors are just looking for an opportunity to meet the president, it's most likely that even those who will stay in the race are also seeking the same opportunity. And when they have issues, then they know they will meet the president at the next
Right Honorable
SEC.
Speaker and Kadaga are seeking for an opportunity to meet the president?
They need an opportunity to keep seeing the president.
All right.
Let me go to the
let's show
traders.
the traders.
Yes. So when you look at the issues, the key issues by the traders, the issue of a bad tax regime, and the Yusuf has explained in detail about that. But I will only add the issue of VAT variations in the East African region, with Kenya, which is the largest economy, charging 16% VAT and 8% on energy imports. Tanzania charging 18, but with Zanzibar charging 15, and then Uganda charging 18, but with a lower threshold for businesses that are eligible to register for VAT. And the traders are demanding that that threshold be improved from 150 million to 1 billion. And I hope that if we have any serious policymakers remaining in this country, those issues will be taken into consideration. The second issue is the investors who are street hawkers. We have been in the outskirts, like Minister's Village, where my office is. We had an influx of foreign hawkers selling domestic utensils, plates, spoons, fork, and one after the other. Some of them were driving Ipsam vehicles, some of them on borders. So we had to put a poster for the first time to chase away hawkers.
Actually, one came to my house and was offering those commodities
Yes.
on credit.
Yes. Once you have formal employment, they would say, take their things. Then they harass you, because I saw that with my staff. Some of them who took their things. Until we reached the decision to say, no more of these people here. Because they are dumping goods, maybe a bit of good quality, but harassing people in formal employment. They were just hawking like any other hawkers. Recently, they reached our village, because I stay a bit out of town in the village. On Sunday, they reached my home, some foreign hawkers selling the same utensils. So when you see Casita saying no, investors, because the investment code defines who an investor is, minimum of $100,000, and also strictly in manufacturing sector. No retail business, no hawking. But they are doing the reverse. I don't think they have the money stated, the minimum stated in the Investment Act, but also they are not in manufacturing, they are in street hawking. The government needs to be clear really. Every government worth its name must have protection measures for their local investors. So these issues must be addressed by the government.
So you agree with Casita?
Yes.
All right. Let's go to Honorable Stephen Mkitale. Honorable Mkitale, this is not the first time that these traders are actually going on strike over this issue. We had the same incident last year. The government promised to have it addressed, and once again, the Prime Minister met them and also promised to actually have them addressed. But what's your take on this strike, and what does it say about the Ugandan economy, taking into account the fact that local traders actually need to survive?
Number one is that how I wish that the traders of Uganda, and more so importers, I'm speaking as somebody with a background of export-import. I was a tax agent for more than 15 years before I became an MP. And when I was with Honorable Dombo, every time Kasita came to Parliament, my plea with them was that the earliest they stop being importers and they bring technologies to become local manufacturers, the better. Because the country will do better with them producing those very goods. Dr. Britt has mentioned the issue of dumping. And we left a debate in Parliament. I've had finances responding to it. The issue of tax policy, I've raised it at NPA. The issue of tax policy is very important. Even when we are saying the Vision 2040, the NDP4 just rolled out, and the tenfold strategic growth, we are not going to depend on imports. We should be intentional, and that's what's called industrial policy. We should be intentional to stop importing and as much as possible feed this East African market, the African free continent trade we are looking at. If we succeed to do that, we don't just look at the tax as a way of raising revenue. We need revenue because we have a deficit. We need to deepen our domestic revenue mobilization, and that's where URA comes into the trap. Because of the structure of the economy, the indirect taxes, what you call import duty, is very lucrative. Sounds, but how I wish the very people who have put, and I saw it when I left university. Mkwano was largely an importer, but he left a local manufacturer. We have seen this land. You have seen so many people. I can mention more than
information
companies.
Let's allow him to
let me
conclude. I'll
first
give you an
bring out
opportunity.
this issue.
Let me bring it.
Because the Kasita leaders, the seniors and the new ones know that this import, by the way, this country, the inferior goods on the markets in Uganda, I don't want to believe. I remember last time there was this excitement of China. It's called China what? At Lugogo. At Lugogo, what's that place called next to Forest Mall? That excitement. By the way, we would do better, Doctor, we would do better when these technologies are there. Where they import these things from?
I want to give you
we can
information
bring these technologies here, and that's the so that these incentives, which government is being accused for largely giving to foreigners, they should be across board with our own people.
All right.
It's also true.
Just on that
It's
point.
also true as a person who is has some depths in taxation, that our traders they want to use simple ways of declaration. Now, because some of these people come from abroad, they know how to play declaration. They know how to get some zero exempt. They know how to get some. So they beat us on that game. But the point I want to emphasize is that it's wrong for somebody to be licensed as an investor. He becomes a distributor. He becomes a transporter. He becomes a retailer. And that's why the argument of local content becomes very important. If you are a foreign investor, you should be given some sanctions and conditions that until you become resident domicile, until you become fully Ugandan, because you can become a Ugandan company.
All right.
And when you become a Ugandan company, you are even because you're going to plow back.
All right.
But the problem is also those who get those incentives and tax waivers, they are not regulated.
All right.
So the money comes in as an
can you
investor.
take
Even if he
information?
doesn't invest, he will continue looting the country, dumping and using. So he starts now importing containers of finished goods, and he starts retailing, and you find these people even going down in other districts.
All right.
Denying the citizens what would have been there.
All right. Let's
So
get
I would want us to discuss the bigger picture
Let's get
than
the
just speaking for
let's get the
my
information.
importers who actually I can take the information.
Let's hear from you, Dr. Sarunkoma. The
There's
information you want to provide.
there's a
on
book
what
that
you
one time I recommended to Honorable Dombo. It's called Double Your Money, written by, I think, perhaps one of Uganda's best agro business person, who's also a manufacturer, Agasekalala. In that book, he tells the story of manufacturing industrial agricultural products. Lipo, you remember the Lipo hoes and machetes? If you imported the technology, you're taxed to make those hoes and pangas. You're taxed because the technology could be used for other things. The Indian who imports already finished hoes is not taxed because they're called industrial agricultural products.
I hope you heard when I talked about tax policy. That's what tax
No,
policy
but you see, when
tax
you
policy
encourage,
addresses, we are not just levying taxes
let me
raise revenue.
finish this point.
We put taxes sometimes to discourage dumping,
no, Mr. You didn't allow me to finish
protect
the
local
point.
industries, and that's where it comes. So the tax policy would see, we could put what is a raw material and what's not a raw
So
material.
if you insist that businessmen should become manufacturers, the regime under which they should become
don't use the word
manufacturers,
business. I'm saying importers.
I mean,
Importers. I want to be
should
specific.
become
We
manufacturers.
would encourage them.
Exactly, but the regime, there are young people across this country who are making footwear, small sandals. They are taxed out of business. So an importer who imports Chinese-made sandals gets a lower tax because it brings this huge container of these sandals. And the young man who has opened a shop in Wandagere to manufacture those sandals.
The answer is in tax policy. And for me, the final one is the groupage. It's indeed, as a shipper, as a tax agent, the groupage cargo, or what you call consolidated cargo, is an entry point for small importers. So what's supposed to be encouraged? Because, again, for their own safety and security, it's not good to bring this. These goods used to come open. But it's only in your interest that it's put in a container.
All right.
Because you can imagine moving from a ship in Guangzhou to Mombasa, but when you put 20 people, 40 people in
a
one
single container,
there is an advantage to
All
that.
right, all
So
right.
it's a good intention, but what we need is how do we make sure that this beginner also can. But now that comes to his point. That's why he has reminded me. You are importing small volume. You cannot compete with somebody importing 20 containers. But the final one is about our Ugandan traders, the dishonesty. I can tell you as a shipper, as somebody who has been import and export, the first people who used to bring these clothings, these things they are fighting for, they were not even paying for them. They were being given credit by those companies. But there are some few Ugandans who defrauded those foreign companies. They started coming here to follow up their money. That's how they started renting this place. I have details on that. But otherwise, I don't want to mention names. The first about 100 big companies in Uganda brought things here under export-import promotion by those countries, including Japan, and they were not paying for them in advance. They were supposed to, if you sell 20 containers a week, send back. But Uganda defrauded those foreigners. They started coming here. They found landlords. They became the biggest tenants. And I have that story. So it's partly also of our...
Anderson, if I could add small
We actually
information.
need to move
I
on.
was there.
Let's not go to Honorable
You're
Dombo.
being so
Honorable
unfair
Dombo.
to business people.
Honorable
Extremely
Dombo, your
unfair.
quick take on that.
Bana Lukwago, all this is basically a characteristic of very poor people
After 40 years of the NRM.
who have a list of very unending expenses on which it must be, either by members of parliament. I was in parliament for 20 years. But when you hear members of parliament debating the budget, you rarely get members of parliament talk about the revenue side.
Taxes.
Everybody is telling you what they want in their constituencies.
Expenditure.
There is one time when we passed a lame budget in parliament.
Lem.
A lame budget which was not balancing. And it had to force the IMF to intervene and say, but you are saying you want to have this expenditure. What is the source of revenue? Where is money going to come from? So, we have a huge expenditure framework where we want to spend money, the needs that we have for the country. But when you look at the tax GDP ratio in the region, the Ugandan tax GDP ratio is the least. So, even the funders, the international credit organizations, they are saying us want to lend you money. But when you look at the region, Rwanda, Burundi, Kenya, Tanzania, they say, why is your tax to GDP ratio the least? How do you elevate it? So, government is in a catch-22. You must fund the needs of the country. You must raise money. But at the same time, you must get the money from the traders. That's the first challenge. The other challenge, which is historical, is that nobody wants to pay tax. Even me, if I had an opportunity on how I would avoid or evade it, people try as much as possible, either legally or illegally, to try to avoid. But the more money you retain on you, the better for you. Either you're a businessman, you are an employer, you are an employee, because it will give you more disposable income, which you can use to do many other things. So because of that challenge, it creates a lot of temptation in the hands of those who would be paying tax, especially when they had an opportunity at one time when they were not paying tax, they were making more money, or they were paying lesser tax because of the loopholes that existed then. And this has created a problem, because the last time the businessmen went on strike, they said there was a tax called IFRIS. Even members of parliament were saying this IFRIS tax here. But when they went to explain, IFRIS was not a tax, but it was a mode of capturing the transactions in order to be able to determine what is taxable income.
The receipt system.
A receipt system. So, these are challenges that we have in our tax system. That we're a poor country, the tax GDP ratio is low, the expenditure requirements is big, yet we must raise the money from internal. The other major problem that we have, when Honorable Mukita talks about the tax policy, the government tax policy says we must tax consumption and we must exempt production. Yeah. And in order to exempt production, you exempt production because you want to encourage the production, you want to create employment, you want to boost exports. Because you can only export when you have produced. You can only export because you have produced. If you produce things here, that means the people will be working in the factories in order to produce, so people will be employed. When you import goods from outside, you are exporting jobs also. Because the people who manufacture those goods outside, they pay salary, they pay income, they pay consumables on the other side, which are transferred to the people here to pay for in form of cost price. So these are challenges of the economy, and in a situation where the government must come up strongly, I remember the president when he last met the traders, he brought up these matters very clearly. He said, all of you export coffee. How many coffee farmers are being taxed? Look at the people producing milk that we're exporting in this country. How many milk producers are being taxed? Look at the people who are selling cows here in Lufla. People are selling cows every day. And those who are trading, people are making money out of these cows. Could be in the future, this may be one taxable area which government may want to think about, but you don't want to impede production because you need people to continue producing. You remember when we were in parliament, because of the poverty that we had as a country, government was forced to over-liberalize. They
was forced?
Yes, to over-liberalize. You remember when they liberalized the foreign exchange market here, somebody was arrested at Entebbe airport with $1 million being taken out of the country. Now, in order government to attract foreign investors, to be able to beef up the manufacturing either here or to create private capital in order to boost production, they had to give a lot of incentives. But could be progressively, this is maybe high time for us to begin reviewing those incentives. To say, the other time we had the challenges. Now the economy is stabilizing. Uganda is one of the biggest destinations for foreign FDIs in the region. Isn't it high time for us to begin saying now, let us begin changing some of the policies? When you look at these telecom companies, how much money are they making?
15 trillion.
And how much are they living here? We may begin reviewing some of those areas. You know that Baba
The plowback condition is important.
All right. Spectrum Extra on Radio 1 FM
Could
90.
I will end up with one point. Could I
Very quickly.
Very quickly, recently I met our ambassador to Tanzania, Honorable Fred Mwesige, and I was asking him about the recent pronouncement by the Tanzanian government about protection of the individuals and how it, comparing it with the provision that there must be free movement of goods and services and free movement of capital and people within the East African community.
Customs.
And he said some of these issues which the Tanzanian government is raising were negotiated and they were part of the treaty at the time of the treaty, at the time the various countries entered in the treaty. If America is protecting its citizens, if the other countries are protecting their citizens, we liberalized because we wanted private capital. Is it high time that we needed to begin regulating in order to protect the businessmen here? But in this issue here, may I keep calling on members of parliament? Honorable Kitale, the issues you are raising, you raise them in parliament when you're a member of parliament. The civil society will talk outside here, but the people with the mandate, with the ability, and with the locus are the members of parliament. Let them summon the traders, summon the ministers, summon the government in order to understand what exactly is happening.
Well, I hope when the parliament takes a decision on such issues, the executive will actually respect it, because we have seen situations where the executive has said parliamentary decisions are merely advisory. But let's go for a break. When we return, we shift our gears and look at the ongoing debate about Nachivo Channel and the bigger picture of fiscal planning in our country. Stay tuned, Radio 1 FM 90 will continue after this break.
Anderson.
Thank you so much for staying with us on Spectrum Extra, live on Radio 1 FM 90, reviewing the major events of the week with the Honorable Emmanuel Lumala Dombo, Director of Information at the NRM Party Secretariat, Dr. Sarah Birete, Chief Executive Officer at the Center for Constitutional Governance, Dr. Yusuf Serunkuma, Political Economist, and the Honorable Stephen Mutalevirawa, Executive Board Member, the National Planning Authority, where he's in charge of physical infrastructure development. My name is Kenneth Anderson Lukwago, your host, and now we want to reflect on the comments that are coming in from the listeners before we carry on with the discussion. Good evening, Kenneth Anderson Lukwago. Yusuf has a way of describing or creating other words for empty tin. This time, not making noise, but speaking the finest high-level English that doesn't make sense or address issues. Been struggling how to classify Dombo's submissions, but today Yusuf has perfectly done the best surgery. Serun Kuma, well done. That's a comment from Richard. We have another comment. Good evening, Kenneth. George from Bunga. Kenneth, I do agree with Dr. Sarah that the office of the presidency has been zeroed to nothing. Kenneth, to prove you right or wrong, during our times, the office of the presidency would highly be respected, that citizens could treat it with honor when president speaks, and the citizen could listen and say, yes, we are safe, because they have heard from the head of state. But this current regime has made it when the president speaks, citizens are just in Kamoli waiting to mock him because his statements are unreliable. But during our time, how could you challenge the president's statement, whether wrong or right? How could you dare? Which prison could you be looking for to be imprisoned for challenging the president's statement? Good evening, Spectrum Extra. Wamai Charles listening in from Mbale. I absolutely agree with Dr. Yusuf Serunkuma. We don't have political parties here in Uganda. Can you imagine NUP cannot survive without Bobby Wine? NRM shall be no more after M7. These are indeed movements masquerading as political parties. Fantastic show. Good evening, panelists in studio, especially our senior revolutionary, Dr. Sarah Birete. Well, I didn't know you are a revolutionary. Having a child who knows all the mother's worst side, asked about the mother's worst side. He says, having a child who knows all the mother's worst side, ask about the mother's worst side. May not submit that the mother has this statement really. Let's move on to another
Must have
comment.
been thinking in vernacular.
Moffat listening in from Kampala. Kenneth, I take exception from this discussion about the matter in which
Direct
they view
translation.
the matter in which we view the
It's
conception of
translating
politics
meaning.
here in Uganda. Malcolm X and King Martin Luther's speeches should be the basis for any politician to claim to hold office of leadership. To be honest, I am disappointed with our way of politics. Hello, Anderson. Good evening, and I am listening live from Gulu live streaming. Thank you so much for joining us. The question that I have always asked myself is why people are selling property to go to the Gulf countries, while people from the Gulf are coming like investors. Some are in my village selling phones on loan. I have been to Ethiopia. You can't open a business without partnership with a local person if you are a foreigner. And to be qualified as an investor, you should have a certain threshold of money in dollars.
The truth is our politicians have sold our country for personal gains or pure innocent listening in from Gulu. Then we have another comment. Good evening, Xtra. Tax holiday is killing our citizens. How does the government tax local business people, leaving the foreigners, moving up to villages selling plates, pan, cups? Uganda is a real dumping ground. And it's so painful to hear from His Excellency, the President, saying government can't do business. So even money collected by URA is clearly mismanaged. Why can't he just give away for other serious citizens to take over from where he has failed? That's Mawa Amaza Moyo with that comment. Mr. Birawa, if Ham can't even build any factory but constructing city shops to sell imported goods, Mutebi, Moses listening in from Jinja. The change in the business environment in Uganda will, the business environment in Uganda will never change if the man of Honorable Mukitale, who has the power and mandate to create change, can still talk like that. Access to all enabling facilities to do business only favors foreigners. Corruption by the government is what makes local businessmen to do business the way they do, because there is no control. Even taxes are one way of indirect corruption by government. That is Wilson Bikakanga listening in from Muyenga. Well, let's carry on with the discussion. Dr. Yusuf Serunkuma and Sarah Birete, you wanted to intervene and respond very quickly to issues that Honorable Dombo had put across. Let's hear from you and then we move on to our next topic.
Yes, you know, Honorable Dombo's submission leaves out the burden of indirect taxes on citizens. Everything we consume, starting from salt, there is a tax payable to government. Government generates 65% of tax revenue from indirect taxes. So when we sit and discuss the tax burden of Ugandans based on cosmetic GDP estimates, it's not realistic. We need to evaluate the whole tax regime in the country. And the issue of traders, it's not just traders in Chikubo. If you got hotel entrepreneurs, where we usually conduct our activities, they tell you they are earning zero profit and they're about to close. Some of them are looking for people to buy those hotels. If maybe the policy direction of government is to make sure they choke out entrepreneurs, local entrepreneurs from their own enterprises and maybe buy them, maybe that could be something that citizens need to consider, because you cannot tax your own citizens out of businesses. If you go to the employable Ugandans, 50% of whatever we earn goes to statutory obligations, and then the remaining 50 gets lost in indirect taxes with fuel. Ugandans pay the highest indirect tax on fuel. And the price of fuel influences the tax of everything else that we consume in our daily lives. So this must be reviewed.
Basic clarification. If the hotels in Uganda are making losses, what type of taxes do they pay?
Of course, they pay a host of direct and indirect taxes. Honorable Mukitare can explain to you. Of course, they will pay withholding, they will pay VAT, but also the things they buy for the hotel, including food, has a burden arising from high fuel taxes up to the final consumer.
All right, let's have Dr. Serunkuma.
There's a basic premise I want to give to Honorable Dombo, and I think maybe Honorable Mchitari here, that governments don't fund their budgets from collecting taxes. In fact, in most advanced economies, they collect taxes and give them back to the people. They give you your money back when you fall on bad times. In many advanced economies, so which means they don't rely on your taxes. Governments collect money to fund their budgets through production and offering services. That's a basic promise in the political economy. The lie that has been sold to many people is that our taxes fund the things that governments do for us. A part of it, yes. Let me give you the example of Idi Aminu's government. The 8 years it thrived. It thrived basically on selling coffee. It was the government doing business. So profits from our coffee exports came to the government of Uganda to fund everything it was able to fund. The 8 years when Amin lived under intense sanctions, it was because Uganda Coffee Marketing Board was selling our coffee, and from that coffee, he had money to fund our budget.
But from there, you're also agreeing that export promotion is very important. Because
No,
that was
let
an
me-
export.
let me put this point. Let me this point.
Dr. Yusuf,
So
you're
the
running out of
lie,
time.
the lie we give ourselves that we'll collect taxes from Ugandans to fund our budget. It's a lie.
Where do we get it?
The
Lastly-
business, the
lastly-
business, lastly, the businesses that have been killed by or under Yoweri Museveni's government by nationals are innumerable to count. Killed by this government or under or died under Yoweri Museveni's government are innumerable to count. So if you guys are talking about people should, let's talk about banks, for example. Bank as a business. The Auditor General, John Mwanga, told us all the banks that were closed since 1994, there were no minutes. They just closed them. They just woke up one day and said, we closed them. These are banks by nationals. And that entire industry has been left for foreigners. They dominate this bank. Ours were closed without the Bank of Uganda sitting anywhere and maybe holding a meeting and holding the owners of those banks responsible, asking them, why did you do A, B, C, D? They just closed them. That was in a report given to Parliament by the Auditor General. So if you talk about businesses being killed, like Ugandans should start becoming business people instead of importing, you're not talking about this government. I'm telling you, if you generated list from Sembule Investment to the ones in your villages, we were producers. Our cooperatives were killed under this government. Our cooperatives were producing, they were manufacturing. They were organizing and selling their products. All of them were killed under this government. So you guys need to rethink your entire ideas of how this thing is being run.
All right.
As we transit to the next topic,
And I want to begin with you because we are running out of
I
time.
want to say Dr. Took has taken more of the story of the old good days.
They're not
But
bad days.
in the end, you are saying it is important that we increase production at home than just consumption and that we export. You are saying incentives should be done and protection for local industry. And that cannot be by promoting imports. And again, another caller has given a very good message. We want the hams and the casitas not only to do concrete and mortar in form of shopping arcades. I wish they could do more industries. They could do more manufacturing.
But you're not giving them the
That's where
support
to
that
go.
they need.
Now,
That's the point.
the tax policy I'm talking about, industrial policy, is intended to create a conducive environment for these citizens. For example, if you are importing a raw material, a machinery for industrialization, you should have it. You should have that incentive. But I said the asymmetry of information. People who are transferring technologies from abroad have much more information on tax regimes, and that's why they play with the books, because taxation is about declaration.
All right. Honorable Mkhitaryan,
Now,
let's shift our gears now and look at the issue of the
how I
channel.
wish, I want
We are
to
running
pray
out of time.
to Radio 1 and all media houses, can we give the question of National Physical Development Plan enough time? In 2010, the whole country was declared a planning area. When that KCCA law was made, that KCCA law, when it was made, should actually have, it's supposed to be operationalized by the National Physical Development Plan, which mandate now, among other strategic, is under NPA, and the supervision is the lead being Minister of Lands, and of course, the central physical planning is a decentralized function. A lot of this debate of Nakivo Channel is a post-mortem debate, is a downstream debate. The bigger picture should have been the land use planning of the whole country. Should have been every region having a national physical development plan. We should have known. It's also true. Development in this country by private sector has moved ahead of the urban authority planning. So we are now jumping to discuss harm when actually we should have discussed where is such kind of investment supposed to have been. So by the time we made the law in 2010, KCCA, which should actually have become a Greater Kampala
Authority.
Metropolitan, because I was in another meeting, expanded board of NPS a day with Honorable Musumba, when he brought the board in 2020. I actually preliminary opposed, saying, where is the plan? So one thank cabinet finally for having passed the plan, but this plan is understood by citizens. So the debate shouldn't be Lukwago has said this and Ham is saying this. Ham has just looked at the gap. And this reminds me with the Honorable Dombo submission on the question of liberation. Liberation doesn't mean there's no regulation. So even on this one,
All right.
because we know in other cities where we go, you may not see the channels. Actually, most of the underground trains, they are passing in those, they are underground. But there are buildings on top. That's why you go up and at a station, but there's a lot of movements underground. Now, the problem of harm is for him as a private sector who sniffs opportunities. He now looks at that as an opportunity. But ideally, this would have been planned much earlier. Now,
KCC actually says they have a Kampala master plan to handle all this drainage. They are not being provided the funds.
Now, I'm coming to that. Now, what should have been the condition for KCC? I want to use the word Greater Kampala. It's also not true that the Nakivo channel is Kampala specific. The drainage system of Greater Kampala is bigger. It
Understood.
comes from Wakiso, the Luviji, it feeds into Nakivubo, there is Chinawataka channel, it's quite
So all that
subsystem.
has been given Trump.
No,
No,
we are
no,
focusing on
no.
Nakivo channel.
Uh-huh.
And
No, it's wrong also to focus on first of all, you should know
all right.
the bigger part of Greater Kampala, the central business was a wetland. I wish you could start from there.
So in principle,
in
should
Because
we
Kampala is on hills.
should we allow
That is
harm?
a
Now,
wetland.
the upper Kampala is the Kololos, our religious institution, Maina Mirembe, your Rovaga, Makerere University, the Kivulis. Those are the upper parts.
the old
But
boy.
the other part you are
The
seeing,
lower ones,
the lower
including
ones.
tax park.
Exactly. Now, when you're doing it, the condition which should be given to any developer, not just harm, that for you to put a structure like we see when we go in the developed world, you must make provisos for the drainage as it should be. You should know the volume of the water. You should know that tomorrow you could have an underground train, that you will have a sewerage, that you will have water system, that underground cables where necessary. So, is this investor willing to meet that expense that it takes?
All right.
Because
Dr.
even
Sarukuma.
if he fails, first of all, it will collapse.
All right.
Because the water cannot be. So
I just had a
the
quick
debate
point
should
for-
not be surrounded into harm debate. I don't want to go into trivializing the debate to one individual called.
All right.
I would want us to plan. What if tomorrow it's in Barra?
All right. Let's hear from
What if
Dr.
tomorrow it's in Arua?
I just have a
What if
question.
tomorrow is in Mbale City? Yes, I can take the question.
You sound like there is no plan.
I am saying originally the plans have come late.
No.
Yes,
No, how
listen
was-
to me.
No. Let's.
The private sector development in Kampala was faster than we invested in the fiscal planning.
Okay.
And that is a fact. That's why now it shouldn't, ideally, shouldn't be a responsibility of a private investor
So-
to sort out this. This would have been already
Okay.
a detailed plan by an urban authority.
All right,
If
let's
I
have-
go to Mukono, if I go to Wakiso, where do I put such a facility?
Yeah, but
Unfortunately,
okay.
now it is the private investor who has a duty to sort out these battles. And that is wrong.
All
That
right. Very
is
quickly,
wrong.
Dr. Sarukuma.
That is wrong.
Let's hear your view.
Elias Lukwago is on the record, the mayor of Kampala. From the time of Jennifer Msisi, there is a Greater Kampala master plan. We actually spent money, hired Israeli urban planners. They designed a master plan for this city. It is available.
As an academic, you should be
No.
giving reference
No.
to the year. And the
Now, what is this?
And what is the plan?
Structural
No,
plan
let me
Let's
finish.
continue.
Lukwago's
Bear in
contention,
mind that we don't have time.
the mayor's contention is that the master plan is not being followed. That's the mayor's contention. The mayor's contention that we have refused to follow, it was not, by the way, 1 year, a 50-year master plan. The mayor's contention is not that we don't have a master plan, it's that the master plan is not being followed. Now, I didn't hear in your submission you say that this man didn't see an opportunity. This man, the opportunity he had was to see the president. So the president wrote a letter. So you can't say the private investor has a duty to help you Ugandans. No. Of course the channel looks ugly. I don't think the mayor likes the channel looking like that. I don't think he does. The mayor is saying one thing.
Like
let me
you
finish.
mentioned earlier, I don't want us to reduce this debate between Mayor Lukwago and Ham.
All right.
This is that
I am not.
Let's
Have
bring in
you
Dr.
heard of
Sara.
something called land use planning? If we have land use planning, that debate is redundant.
All right,
You know,
Dr. Sara, let's
just,
hear your view.
just information on the 25-year Kampala Master Plan, it goes up to 2050. And it's available, it's a public document. You can even get it on your phone. So if this plan indeed was to be followed, you don't need ad hoc measures.
You don't.
I want to discuss the governance surrounding the president's hijack of institutional mandate regarding the reward of tender to Hamchugundu to redevelop Nachivo plan. Where is the participation of KCCA, NEMA, and other relevant institutions? Has HAM been given a lease? And for how long? Has he been awarded that open tender? Is he now an owner? What is the legal presence of HAM on the Nachivubo channel? And who is going to determine that? Because the president's letter, however irregular and unconstitutional it is, it does not even state how HAM is going to interact with the Nachivubo channel. Is he a leaseholder? And by which institution? The presidency, does it have mandate to issue leases in Kampala? You citizens need to know that State House and the Ministry of Defense have hijacked Kororo. Kororo, which used to be an independence ground free for citizens, now you need permission from soldiers to occupy Kororo, which is now all colored in yellow. Under this, and KCCA has lost authority, because these are areas under KCCA. So we need to discuss the degradation of institutions, of systems by President Museveni's ad hoc measures, one-man ad hoc measures in governing Uganda. And as he said, the systems have collapsed. I think he should have taken responsibility in that video to say that my leadership has rendered systems and institutions dead.
All right. Honorable Dombo, let's hear your thoughts on this issue of Nachivubo channel.
Kenneth, I have been looking at the debate in Kampala over a period of time, and one of the biggest challenges that we have is politicization of the decisions to develop Kampala, and at times decisions taken and done by people who know nothing. Because Honorable Lukwago was blaming the Kasalas for making a decision and voting. Could be they used ignorance, or they were influenced. Nobody knows the circumstances under which this happened. So the moment we chose to bring politicians to run a city, that is what we're coming up with. We have a master plan which is not working. The other time, President Museveni...
The master plan is not working because you have not provided the funding.
The other time, President provided money and to construct a road. And you know what Lukwago did? He went and brought Besige to come and commission a road, which he did not fund. And so the politics in Kampala has been trivialized.
It is you, Honorable, engaging in trivial politics.
On the issue of Nachivubo channel, the President Museveni, I mean, this man is called Ham. And he has looked at an opportunity, and perhaps he said that what if this open space here is converted into a sealed drainage system and we can build something on top? Does it make sense? The question is, how can we integrate this under the development plan that has been designed? Development plans change, development plans transform, and when technology comes in and new ideas come in, you can transform the development plan. So we have a development plan. Somebody has brought an idea. the question, can this idea be integrated? under
That
the government
idea
plan?
is in the plan.
And then two, if that idea is under the plan and you have a private person to do it, does it cost the government?
So why
These are the
did,
questions that must be asked by technical people.
Honorable, the right questions is why didn't Ham submit his proposal to the right authority?
Which authority?
KCCA.
Radio 1, my request is that we have given a very important subject the last
Visualized
minute.
it.
Can we give it? I wish it is possible for the next spectrum to bring other people, other
Technical people?
experts, to present to us this very important, because it is so critical, and we are doing very badly as a country in as far as National Fiscal Development Plan is come, because if we had land use planning, if we had we were following the private sector, it's not the role of an investor sort of this matter. It should be the urban authorities, it should be the cities, it should be the municipalities. We should gazette these areas with a detailed what? Detailed. Now, it is instead an investor now.
And the
Who has-
president.
Yes, I am saying, I wish,
blackmailing the conversation.
we have reduced this debate to discussing harm and mayor. I don't want that.
No,
How I wish tomorrow, if you have money and you want to invest in Arua, what will you do? In Masaka City, what will
Submit
you
your
do?
tender. Submit your tender for evaluation.
Now, for us now, we are talking of the
The
piece of
ignorant
land.
people
For
here
me,
in
I am
Zimbabwe.
interested.
What do I? They are office bearers.
I am
You
interested.
have executive.
I am
The
interested.
executive is appointed by the president.
Dr. Virete and my
I'm
brother,
afraid we have to
I
bring
am
this
interested
discussion
in
to an
where investors for industry should go.
All right.
Somebody wants a chain hotel should go.
All right.
Somebody wants